keys, the fingertips that reach out to touch them, the string that begs to be bent? Or is it in the notes on a page, a foot to a pedal, the infinite space between imagination and skill? Or is it simply music?
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the 13th Note podcast, Art of Mastery. I'm Jeff Spike Wong. I am also your guest speaker today for this particular module that we're working on, which is called Systems in Place. Now, when I did these solo shows, I try to get certain elements that we talk about in the books that we publish with IU Publishing. Oh, well, I got something flying around. And one of the key factors that I wanted to talk about the book, the 365 method, is, helping how to refinement of self, how to do things that is going to be great, that is not something that is just we do for fun, is something that actually pay attention to do refinement and those aspect of exercises for mental, for alertness, for sharpen your tools and the way you approach decisions. So the system aspect of it is how we develop a certain steps and or ladder that we climb. And with the idea of developing something for you personally is what I work forward to with the 365 method, especially when you signed up for one-on-one private coaching. I wanted to build the system uniquely. In other words, I didn't want to just do a blanket, here's the package and here's what we're going to push for the audience, and then it'd be just $9.95 for a month subscription, or you can do it on your app. That's generic and it's okay. It's not saying that system will not work or the way that's being taught would not be effective. But however, I wanted to take something even deeper, much even more richer in content of development, because the people that I've learned it from, and I would say it's been a long, long journey road that I've been on in regards to learning and developing techniques, thought processes, and ultimately how to build my own system. And I think the first system that I've built that I would recognize that worked was how I played and practiced guitar. And I didn't have really formal training lessons until much later. The way that I approached it was, I'm going to do X amount of time on the record player where I do ear training. I'm going to do X amount of time on just repetitive muscle memory. So not really having to know too much about how to do these things. How I came about developing a system for myself at that point really was from periodicals like Guitar Player Magazine, or I asked the fellow musicians that what did they do, how did they practice? They play, of course, to the record player and listen to songs over and over and over, slow down the songs and try to pick out articulations of each phrase as close as possible. And that to me was great because at a very young age, well, being around 13, 14, that was the year of, I just got to get to know my guitar. But by 14, 15, there was, of course, the foot going into it with no turning back. Okay, I want to do this. How do I get better? And by 17 is where I said, you know what? Everything got to go. I'm not playing football. I'm not running track. I'm not doing any of this crap. I am going to focus my intentions to the guitar playing. And I would say comfortably by 19. When I was 18, I was playing really pretty good. I was doing some big clubs and people started to get to know me. But I look back at it, I know how I played. So by 19, I was running circles around what I was doing at 18. And that was because of just maturity, growth, and continued development using my system on the way I practiced, the way I approached my guitar. And of course, better instrument makes better players. There's no question that your tool of what you bring is important on the task you try to attain. This is why I preach over and over and over. If you don't have the right instrument, you don't have the right tools, you don't have the right equipment, how do you expect to get optimum results? Because your odds are lowered. See what I mean? If you understand what your system is required of you and how you build this to customize. I don't have the money. Okay. I can't afford to have the biggest and the greatest, since sliced bread because it's too darn expensive. So I understand while that might be required for what I want in the end results, I don't have the means. Okay. Exceptions to every rule, right? After all, Edward Van Halen's eruption and all the greatness of him, the first few years going on the world tours and so forth, it was not these handmade, carved, arch tops or Gibson solid bodies. It wasn't like that. He did play a few Les Pauls, I know. However, everybody understands that his main signature guitar, the Frankenstrat, is the guitar he built. And that taught us, I think, a lesson in regards to not to be so closed-minded, closed in our ways of approaching things, closed on trying something that may not look as appealing. In other words, don't judge book by its cover. And I learned that. I definitely got a lot of Edward Van Halen's wisdom from reading his interviews, from listening to his peers, how they review and think about Edward's playing. It was really enjoyable. At the same time, it was adventurous and it was challenging. And he rattled a lot of cages and made a lot of people excited. So, of course, that's the excitement that feeds to the rest of us saying, how can I do this? How can I do that? So developing a system is important. I'm going to start with something that I've been working on, and I'm going to give you an idea in regards to what I did to create a system. And for those of you follow me on podcasting as well as the other ones that I do, which is Miracles Online podcast with my wife, we talk quite a bit about my success with using hypnosis in sports packages for clearing the mind, sharpening focuses. And I'll tell you, it's a unique approach. I can't endorse it enough that I came from wanting to be a ball player, coming back from a 30 years hiatus, to training, lifting weights and bands and hitting in the batting cage and so forth, recovering from nagging injuries and try to get better at this age, which was at that time 59. And it was interesting that it took about 6 to 7 months for me to be comfortable, really comfortable about being in competitive baseball again. But I started the first half of the season really horrible. I was 0 for, I don't know how many at bats, struck out quite a bit because I just so far removed from understanding the game, or my raw talent wasn't doing what it was doing when I was much younger. So I had to train harder because my spirit, my passion did not want me to just go out there and Sunday afternoon drinking beer, softball league mentality. I wanted to compete baseball as I was enjoying it, playing on the video game MLB, the show. And as a matter of fact, it was just sitting around playing video games and getting watching YouTube videos of Matt Antonelli and him playing video games, and he's an ex-pro, that inspired me to wanting to play baseball. So now, how do I get success out of that? I had to build something for myself in sense of strategy, which is the system, that how I can improve on a regular basis. So fortunately, I had a really good buddy of mine that also played. He played in a different league at that time, and we trained together on a regular basis. And his motivation, his own passion motivates me, and that back and forth feeding of each other really was thriving. It was inspiring. It was incredible. And by the end of the first season, I ended up with a batting average of, I think, 291. So that's not too bad. That's near 300. If you hit 3 out of 10, 300, you're considered a Hall of Famer, but that's in the major leagues. Here, where nobody's throwing 100 miles per hour, so I can't take credit for being that great. But I would say this, crafty pitchers at an older age don't get rattled like the way kids get rattled. And they're savvy in regards to life experiences and so forth. So therefore, that they understand how to stay cool under certain pressure moments. I know I feel that. And that to me is another level of the game that I really enjoyed. So with that season finishing at 291, that wasn't too bad, but I know I trained really hard for it. So going into the next season, it was more challenging because I got with my buddy and I'm starting to play on a new level, more competitive. Now I'm facing 75, 85 miles per hour fastballs. Occasionally you got a guy throwing 90 something. So all of a sudden, hey, we're up on that level of playing in a competitive D1 to minor league baseball at this point. And at 60, how do I train for that? Well, I turned up the notch. We went out to the park and we started running flat out and doing baseball drills out in a field, opposed to just working in a batting cage, working on a pitching tunnel in that environment. Ultimately, that helped us tremendously on just athleticism. That athleticism was something that we could not buy, we could not borrow. We can only earn it and develop it within our own hard work. So that being the case, I was not doing too bad. However, I wasn't still at the point where I felt like I refined to master hitting, to the point where I was very comfortable. I could do whatever I want at the plate. I wasn't there. And I questioned, what can I do to get there? And of course, my wife, Kat, she is perfect match, needless to say, for me, because at the same time, she's been investing her time, her efforts in developing her new business, Heart Space Hypnosis, Life by Design, and for me, this was just perfect timing. So she sat with me, we did a full session, and then she gave me a custom-made audio file, which I had a 21-day program that I have to do this every day for 3 weeks. By the end of this 3 weeks, I had a game, and I was very fortunate that this game was open league game. So I got to play against 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, opposed to just, late 20s, early 30s, and mid 30s and up. And this aspect of competition was exciting because, as you can well imagine, we are doing something that's even more challenging. That game, I went 1 for 3, had RBIs and stole 3 bases and scored 2 runs and had a walk. And so it was great, tremendous outing for offensive and just overall game experience. And being excited about that, I also knew that this isn't it. I got to put more refinement to this, because what I am looking for overall is greatness in everything I do. So with this hypnosis in my system, how do I train and refine even better? So I start crafting a variety of different things, from training tools, from aptitude point of view of film studies. In other words, I got on many baseball pages as well as YouTube's and watched a lot of baseball from a fundamental and from a tips and tricks, from instructional point of view, opposed to just viewing as a spectator. I don't really watch baseball, not for spectating. I don't like watching other people have fun. I want to have fun. So that kind of turning up the level on how I focus and perceive the next season was very different. And I end up hitting 500 before I broke my hand. This dude I was so prepared for. Yeah, he was throwing in the 90s easy. And he's one of those guys that looks like Lincecum that just had long hair and lanky and could throw. And the first pitch came in, I was so ready, jacked up, and I swung with all my might, but the ball rode up and hit me right on the left hand and broke my hand. And how do I know it's broken? Because it still hurts. And it's been over half a year. And I can't really flatten my hand all the way. I can't play guitar on the same level that I used to because I can't stretch and have enough power. And even my baseballs out in the field, grabbing a ball thrown into a glove, I don't have the full strength, full speed of grasping and in clutch. Those are things I'm still working to get back to. But hitting, slowly but surely, I got back into hitting. There was no power on this hand, so I had to bat left-handed to use this hand, and it was great. So because out of adversity, I had to create different type of results. And with that, that season, I just counted it as out because I had to sit out the rest of the year, except for the last game. The last game was just horrible because I just was not myself anymore. The broken hand injury really stagnated all kind of power and speed that I had with my hand coordination. And those are the things you needed as a catcher, as a fielder, and definitely as you're swinging with that quick wrist pop, all that good stuff. So, of course, the season's over. I rest up. I really rest well. And I came back to this coming season. Now, this is where I know that continuous application of my drive to work my system is required if I want to play at a high level again. And can I do that? Now, I left the first league. I went back to my original league, which is the 55 plus league, which is still competitive. I mean, we got guys throwing some really funky pitches and really smart baseball players. So it wasn't like I was being handed a key to, Taj Mahal, and I was just going to be king, baseball. It wasn't like that at all. Everything I do on the field, I still had to earn it. But because of the system I have for myself on the baseball and the way I train, the way I stay focused, and the way I bring my effort, intentions, and energy every time with the same level of intensity every time at the full maximum. At this season, I'm almost at the end of the season now. I'm hitting 500. So now this is not a fluke anymore to any of this in regards to how I train, how I put my efforts into sharpening and refinement, especially with my mental capability and focus with hypnosis. Because I'm going to share with you what happens now. When I go up to at bat, I'm looking at the pitcher. There's three things I think about now. I look at the emblem on his hat. That's all I look at until the arm goes into motion. Then I'm going to look at that arm motion. I'm going to track it to where the ball is coming out, right? So what we're looking at is now we're going to look at a ball coming out. Then this is literally what I'm looking at. I'm looking from the hat, then also I'm looking at the arm and the ball coming out. And what does that do for you? That allows me to track and look at the distance and the line that the ball is moving to. Now, if these guys are throwing all kind of moving stuff, of course, that's going to be more difficult to hit. But if you are patient and you are on top of it and your mind is clean of clutter, there is no chatter in my head whatsoever. I am cool, calm, still, and as serene as if I am in a forest when I play baseball. And that is huge in regards to why I can see the ball and hit the ball. So hitting 500 2 seasons in a row, that to me shows another aspect of it is that the program works, the system is developed, and it's very robust, and I work it to the fullest capacity, and the results is the proof. So let's talk about that. I developed that because I wanted to see results, right? So I'm going to give you some bullet points in regards to the things that has to be used to formulate a system. And then I'm going to show you a system that I developed for scoring pitching, because for the longest time I wanted to be a pitcher, but I broke my shoulder playing basketball 20 years ago and never formed in sense of the way that the bone came back 100%. So I have a separation on my shoulder, and so it has lack of power compared to what I used to have as a kid. But it doesn't mean that it can't be done, because I now know after 2.5 years of lifting weights and throwing as hard as I can, I went from throwing something in the 45 to 50 miles per hour range down to mid 60 to getting near 70. And this is with just the sheer will and tenacity of wanting it. And of course, going in training and being in the tunnel and all that. All these things are important. There's no trick to any of this. So first thing that I did when I developed systems, and what I need to systems, I need to identify, do I need to get something going? Do I need to put something together that I can understand there's a path and steps? So the first thing I always look at is, what is my goal to this? I have to know what I'm defining this whole thing about. What is the end results I seek? Without understanding where I'm going, there is no way I can have a right path. It's no different than you can turn on your GPS and get in the car you're going, but you don't have a destination. Then you're just looking at wherever the map's showing you. So it is imperative, it is the most important step to success, is to know your goal and your end results. What are you seeking for? And here's the thing. Oh, well, I want this and I didn't get that. So, well, that means that certain steps didn't work right, or you failed to complete your full journey on that so-called movement that steps all the way to the end. A lot of people tend to quit prematurely. Like we always said, at the 1 yard line. I used to hear that all the time. People stop at the 1 yard line. Why? Because they're just so tired. They're just so spent. They're just so, okay. Everything is just an excuse. Just so excuse. Just so I don't have to. Just so I can't. Just so I can blame. I don't ever subscribe and buy into those type of thought processes or behaviors, because they're detrimental and they don't serve to your bottom line, which is the goal and the results that you're looking for. So number one thing, when you're building a system, know what your results are, what you're seeking in your goals. Number two, you need a development timeline. In other words, when you're building a system, you need to understand, how long is this system going to work for? When I build the guitar playing system, it's constantly being refined and refined. And do I do the same thing this decade than I did when I was in my 20s? Not even. Was I a better guitar player today than I was in 20s? I was different. Am I not that good in the 20s? No, I was fantastic. I thought in my 20s, because a lot of people told me that. However, the maturity in the artistry, that is the experience that all grows to it. So timeline on the development is big. For instance, if you're playing sports like me and the baseball thing, every season is a timeline. So every season gets a system. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to refine this until the day I die. It's not everything is a lifetime thing, but the systems that you use for whatever you need to get somewhere, it's just like the bus ticket or the train ticket that you use to get on. You need to have one. If you don't have one, you're just going about it kind of aimlessly reaching for stuff. Sometimes you land on something good, sometimes you don't. When you have a system, you can always go, I'm here. Step 2. I'm there tomorrow at step 3. And that's important because having clarity is going to have you to have better thinking process, better idea and understanding the next move, and ultimately knowing when something don't work, don't do it again. Now, let me repeat that. On the system building, if you know there's a module or a step in the system that does not work, you have no obligation to keep doing the same thing, because you're doing the same thing that doesn't work. That just becomes what? That just becomes stupid, because you already know it doesn't work. Why would you keep on doing the same thing? You wouldn't. That is important to recognize. So time development in regards to how you build this system, how long it's going to take, what is this timeline, it's going to offer to you, how many steps along the ways on this timeline that you can assess as short-term goals, intermediate goals, and then ultimate goal. That to me is a very clear, concise, because, number one thing, people, thoughts become things. What you put in your brain, then projects, and that energy goes into the matrix and start to assemble with energy into matter. And then boom, hey, I didn't know I was thinking about that, and here it is. Happens all the time now. Happens more faster and quicker than it has previously. What's going on? So be aware what's all available to you at this time, and how do you refine to get the most out of it. All right, so now let's look at step 3, what I have on building this system. After knowing my end results, after I know how much I should put together a schedule for how long a timeline that certain things would happen and fruit along it on this path, now I need to know how to measure my efforts. How much effort is required to do these things? If I'm lifting weights, that's a big physical effort. If you know that you're going to have to sit down and watch a lot of videos, then you're going to do a lot of analytical thought process, evaluation efforts. Recouping from an injury, resting, that's effort. Being able to take you away from a movement of physicality, rotation, to still and calm and heal. So everything has a place for it, and you need to make sure you identify it properly and correctly out, so that way you can see it. Everything I'm telling you in sense of building a system, it would be to your advantage, other people would say, behoove you to put it on paper. So that way you can actually look at it like I have it on paper. Yeah, I wrote this. So I wrote this because I know this, because these are all things that I've learned from also other systems, and I just constantly refined and got better at it. A lot of these things were taught to me by, Fortune 500 companies, top world recognized brands, that would spend thousands and thousands of dollars and sell seminars and evaluations and tests and all kind of stuff. And to have the privilege and the honor to have those type of training is second to none in regards to the success that I can have today, as well as I can also understand why am I successful at this. So understanding building is the key. And when we have the effort aspect of it, is like how much time that I need to put, how much energy that I need to contribute to this module or this day or this, particular exercise or, a task These are all things that need to be assessed because some steps aren't the meat and potatoes of it. And that could take a while. It could be 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. We don't really know. Depends on what your end results that you're seeking for. But do understand that you need to be aware and understand the development of the effort that is going to be required of you to do this to be successful, because it's all good and fun and all that by developing it. But if you're going to not recognize how much hard work you're going to put into it, then chances are you're not going to reach that goal because you never gave the proper respect and understanding of just how hard the work effort is going to have to be required by you making a decision, doing it, and diligently doing it right and doing it over and over until you get the desired results of refinement. Now, if you got something that's not working, of course, doing it over and over was redundant, right? You don't want that. That's where you need to be sharp enough and smart enough to stop yourself and go, no, that's not working. That never has worked. We need to stop that. So identifying refining issues is the key. That's the next bullet point. Because without that aspect of identify and refine, you're just going to be guessing at this. Okay. What you're looking for is to eliminate by process of what has the best success rate, what has some spotty, but good points. I could use there's things that is failing 90% of the time. I only get 10% of results. Is that 10% of results ultimately the cream? And that is what we were searching for in the first place. Sometimes it's that. So you need to really understand what those steps are, identify the importance of those steps. Without understanding the importance of it, it's going to be hard for you to prioritize these steps because certain things need to go in front and certain things need to go in the back, depending on what serves the bigger picture best. And also what works with you customization wise in sense of the effort, the means of support, and all those little things that made your decisions needs to be brought into for the identifying and refine to what you're going to face is what worked and what didn't work. Now, how do you evaluate? So key thing is you have to build something that is considered like a checkpoint into your system. How long are you going to go somewhere and be able to go, okay, that's long enough. Let's look at how far we've gone and how much we've gotten out of where we're going. So think about that and then assess it, because everything is different from each people's needs. So it's not that I did this for 20 days. This is perfect. I did this for 20 years. It's not there yet. It could be all that. Okay. So this is the part about your refinement of building the system that you have to have the awareness, the know of all of how this is going to serve you. If you feel that, hey, if I don't check on this every week on Monday, I always got a feeling that I'm forgetting something. If you have that thought, then of course, follow your gut instinct. Build that into the Monday meetings for yourself because you already know, hey, I need to be on top of this every week. So you already gave yourself the answer to that, right? Okay. So document is the final thing I'm going to tell you. Always document, journal it, write it down, do spreadsheets, whatever works for you. But you want to document your path and results with that effort that you're doing, because ultimately, I can assure you, you build one successful thing, you're going to want to build another one. And the chances are that as you start to build systems for the things you need, you're going to be better at it. So that means more details, more grandeur and sense of robustness of the system can offer, because the results you're looking for, it's bigger than ever. And that's huge. So at this time, I'm going to show you guys what I really did. Interestingly, I created this book, and it's the official baseball pitching stats scoring book. Smith and Hogan. I just love the name, so I created that. Smith and Hogan, official baseball pitching scoring stat scoring book. And the reason why I created this book is that I was scoring baseball out of the traditional baseball scoring books while we were playing games. And I can't really, anybody who's ever seen a scorebook, you realize you're really reading like a 4-point font. I mean, just it's so ridiculously small that you could never really chart your pitching. Okay. So I'm going to pull up this slide here. Okay. So this, as you can see, is a example of a scoring system on a page. And the way I developed this, that you can actually take a pen in this book, and let's go back to the book. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the explanation here. If you have a big enough screen, you can look at this, or, it'll tell you how you're scoring. And I used a lot of common baseball scoring language, so it's not that far removed. But the thing, what's nice is that I broke it down to the point where it explains how you can score it. And then I give you an example sheet, what it should look like. And the best thing that I can offer you is that by understanding your performance as a pitcher, okay, I've developed this really for myself first, because I want to know how well I was pitching. By watching my video of games, I realized that, I didn't know that happened. I didn't know this happened, because the scorebooks wouldn't reflect it. And even though if I had somebody who was really good at scoring, they still couldn't give me the things that I wanted to know, such as, that guy singled to the right, what happened in regards to, did he throw the cutoff guy? All the little things that, might come into question. I created ways, as you can see, to be able to allow examples and making notes to ourselves to be able to know that particular play. Now, the whole book is really a stat book. See, that's all it is. It's a blank form book, and it allows you to score pitching. Now, let's go back to me. Hey, this whole thing came to me because I wanted to be better. I was spending, money on Baseball Academy, learning to pitch. I was practicing in a pitching tunnel, so renting a facility with the pitcher's mound and videotaping myself, and then going into the games and playing with all that adrenaline rushing and being in the moment that every pitch counts. You can't really, kind of work yourself out of it, because before you know it, your bases are loaded and you only got one out. So that's not a place to kind of learn your craft. You really should refine it at practice. But here's the thing, because I can't really reflect unless I watch video, and if there's no video in the game, then I'm kind of screwed just having to go back to my own memory. This scoring system that I developed is intentionally easy enough to understand that someone in grade school could sit down and be at the bleachers and score for you, like your kids, like your spouse, your friends. This was designed to help the pitcher in number one way, to understand exactly what went on when you were on the mound, the people you faced, what kind of pitches you threw, how many pitches you threw. And then you have a stat line that you can start formulate out of what was your percentage of first pitch strikes, how many runs, how many hits. You can then, of course, do your calculations for your earned run average, or all the statistics, just really robust in the sense of the details that you can go from batter to batter to batter, that you can now score and easy to read. That's the key that I needed. I didn't want to go through a big score book and start looking at, what is that? Is that a foul ball? What I can't tell. What is this, an E6? What is it? Is it an F6? I can't tell. So Those things are all gone now because the nature of how I scored this thing made it easy for everyone. It just is so much easier to have a way to do something like a legend to the map, and then an example, just like the roadmap, saying this is this, this is this, this becomes what happened, and then this is the amount of pitches that you gave up on that particular batter. Extremely excited. I'm always excited when it comes down to baseball and baseball related because I'm actively in it. So, of course, my creative juice goes into it. And this is where the creative juice helps tremendously in fueling your passion, developing your system that works. So now I have the ability, because I'm training by myself in baseball, I can now go back and play the scenarios and look at my pitches and really chart and score my own stats in the way that, okay, I threw X amount of pitches. I can see how many went into the 9-hole, how many that was just went to the backstop, and all those things. The goodness of all this is that in real game play, especially if you're kids in, little league and going into the pony leagues and high school and all that, you have this great, tremendous opportunity to develop at this point because you're physically growing. So the technique of pitching and so forth is different than, let's say, if you were coming out of high school, going to D1 or JC or wherever you're going to school, or you're going into a minor league system. Now you're developing into a career. Having stats being kept meticulously could help you to evaluate accurately your growth, of your refinement. So I always encourage anybody who's going to play baseball and who's pitching, you need a copy of this to guide, to literally log your progress. Okay. So this is in Yahoo Publishing. We'll throw that up for you. Yahoo Publishing is something that I'm very proud of. We do books that changes lives. Everything we do has a purpose. And also, just so you know, I don't discriminate. I created a softball version. There's a little minor differences because of softball, the game, but it's similar. It's a scoring book for pitchers in softball. And I am very proud that I developed this system because it was out of necessity, but ultimately that I also felt that, hey, this is something that hopefully that it would assist and help and develop new talents in baseball, especially in the pitching aspect of it. This is fantastic. And on the side note, it's like, how am I so enthusiastic about this? Well, because, I know there's a need for it. I did a big search and there's nothing like it out there. The other thing is this: being a guitar player that came out of the late 70s, early 80s is my formative years. There was no such thing as tab notations, which today you have, the 6 lines and the numbers, and you can tell what string and what fret you're fretting at. That didn't exist yet. That came several years later when tabs became the easier way from reading staff music. So tab is now universal. Everybody uses it for string instruments. And it's very functional because it's very logically laid out. My baseball pitching scoring system is the same thought process. It's logically laid out. It's easy to understand, easy to do, and it allows you to have the most robust, rich stats scoring system that you could ever ask for a pitcher. So I hope everybody get into that. We're coming up 45 minutes to an hour. Try not to go too long on these when I do these by myself, because I could do this for a long time, hour, 2 hours, easy. Because I just got so much of this that I've wrote and worked up in development. When I did the 365 method, the first thing that I thought was, hey, I'm going to put a system out. And then if anybody has a question, I'll help them out. Then when I met Josh Reed and when he sat with me in regards to talking about this book, he felt that it would be to serve the best to the audience and the users if I created a podcast for it. So I did 365 Consciousness. But I didn't feel that became to me the blanket statement, if you will. I don't want to do blanket statement training. I always believe that customizing training is the difference between being good to being great. So I wanted to do custom training, and this is why my packages starts at $888. It's something that requires your attention, focus, and your money, because you're going to value your money when you spend it. If I gave this course at $88, I may sell a lot of more of it, but the amount of dropouts that would come with people who just don't value $88 would be much greater. And I didn't want to play that. I took a long time and really focused and had an opportunity to create this work and this system for not just, to sell, but for all of us to be better. And I want to teach it, just like Bruce Lee was so confident in Jeet Kune Do that he wanted to teach his system. So, Wing Chun and Jung Fan Gong Fu all changed and morphed and evolved into Jeet Kune Do. So my concept of how I refined my overall being definitely was encapsulated in part with this training in the 365 method. Now, because I've been in this so-called mindset in the evaluation and the so-called presentation, all these little nuggets of things and sense of structures and systems in business, that I am very fortunate that I have to retain this, to build it. Now, when I reflect back on building systems and what am I borrowing from and where did I get some of these things, I have to look at what was most important. Like, for instance, I'm going to jump to the piano industry real quick. My first gig out of the piano industry, it's right away into Steinway & Sons dealership. The largest outside of New York City was in Southern California, and I got a job there. And the reason how I got the job is I was just, reading the local want ads, and there was a little ad just like saying, piano store looking for, people. And I called. They said, you want to come on down to do an interview? I said, yeah. Of course, I'm a guitar player. I've worked at Guitar Center. What do I know about piano? I didn't even know what a sauce noodle pedal was at that point. Okay, so if those of you who don't know, go look it up. It's a cool design, great invention for piano players, of course. Okay, so I got there and I'm talking to the manager of the place. He is a major veteran. And what I found out is everybody in that store are just the top piano sales and service people, because, they're involved with Steinway & Sons. I come to learn Steinway & Sons is on the level of Rolls-Royce. Everything has a story to it, has a technique to it, has heritage, history, legendary stuff. And overall, because the instrument itself deserves it. They build incredible handmade pianos. So learning that coming out of the gate was incredible to have that experience. But it was told to me, why am I hiring you, Jeff? He said, I need a guy that's enthusiastic, who's, not afraid of doing the computer stuff, because we got a whole line of digital pianos out there. And we need people that can do that. My traditional piano guys don't even want to touch that stuff. So what I did is, of course, having been a veteran of Guitar Center, I put together a full computer MIDI hookup to a Roland digital piano, turn on that sucker, turn on your printer, turn on your piano, and you can play something. And I had a cakewalk MIDI app on the PC. Everything I put it together in my own PC stuff. So I just took it to work. And they were, they got exactly what they wanted. We could do a demo. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your child playing Mary Had a Little Lamb. And she gets on the piano and plays Mary Had a Little Lamb. Notation shows up on the computer screen. Hit print. Printer prints out the first piece of score that child has played herself. And it just blows away everything else, because that demonstration was hands-on. Okay. So what was it? Well, what did I do that all of a sudden revolutionized and got myself a job in the biggest and most prestigious piano dealer on the West Coast? Is because I had the number one, the know-how, but I had the vision. When they described what they wanted, I immediately already knew how to build this thing and being able to put it in the store. So now I didn't have to teach it to everybody. I wanted to teach it to everybody, but not everybody was interested because they're old school. So the only person that was interested in doing this, I taught him, and he was very grateful, and he thought it was great, and so forth. But the amount of interest that we got from digital piano from that day going forward was definitely 3 times than what it was when we did not have that kind of hands-on demonstration. When we did just, hey, we turned it on, listen to this sound, push another button. Now you got this voice, and then we can do this. We can run this in the computer. Oh yeah, then you just do basically a big pitch about how it could talk to your computer, but you couldn't show them because nobody has hooked anything up for it. So that to me was a huge aspect of it. But now I brought that talent to that position. What were they going to give back to me? Flew me to New York, went to New York, got certified by Steinway and Sons, and basically spend a week really understanding how they build a sucker, from going out to the wood yard, bringing all the stuff in, how they're bending 18 ply maple, all that great stuff, everything you could ever imagine what you see in making something tremendous. I got to see it, got to talk to the people. The great part about this whole thing was that there is a level of respect and honor about music instrument with that level of creativity, innovation, and design. Really, it's just that, 10,000 parts to make that thing sound like that is incredible. And the thing was over 300 years old in sense of design, from Cristofori, who created the piano. For me, I think that what I took away from was that, okay, I've never really had a brand at that level. I work for Rickenbacker build guitars. Rickenbacker is popular because of the Beatles, because of the Byrds, Tom Petty. But in sense of the pecking order in the guitar world, there was always Gibson and Fender before there's Rickenbacker in the sense of popularity. But in the piano world, there's no doubt, hands down, not only from the history of the marketing from that company, but just the sheer flexibility of what that piano can do under a prep of a great technician. It could become the most incredible instrument that you've ever heard. And having to witness that many times over definitely enriched me to understand the level of the musicality and the history, all the things that encompasses why piano is what piano to the world, in the way that it produces music, in the history of what it means to our society. And that, now having to be in a position to work with that product every day, I was taught a system of how to meet, great, follow up, and close the sale. Because, a lot of people will go into buying a piano, wanting to buy a piano, and have no idea whatsoever on just the cost of a piano. And just to understand this, everybody understands the name Yamaha. Everybody understands the name Steinway and Sons, but they look at it as two big black looking thing that looks like a piano. So they're assuming, that's just brand difference, right? It's different between Toyota and Honda. And that's not really the case, because the nature, again, is the design, the innovation, and also the key factor in handmade instruments is the material. The quality of the wood is huge in that instrument. And Steinway and Sons, make no bones, they go up to Sitka, Alaska, they get rims, they make their rims and then cure it 4 months. It takes 18 months to make a Steinway piano. It takes, a couple of weeks, if that, to make a Yamaha piano, because of the technology, the pressed wood, the vacuum plates, opposed to the plates that is made by casting the iron. So you can see, just by technology alone, it changes the game. And by technology alone, it changes the performance because of what the instrument does for you. So for me to be success, to have a career, I had to build a system, how to retain a database, how to talk to people that I'd never talked to before, and then having to figure out to be trustworthy within a very short time and then close the sale, because the statistic is you're only going to get 1.2 tries to sell a piano to someone you meet. So that means the chances of them coming back is very small unless you do your job, do your follow-up, do your, understanding what are their needs and interests, and then how can you facilitate and meet that expectation. All that required a lot of training of understanding human dynamics. So by processing all that, I had to know how to use it. I can't just come right out and say, hey, thank you for coming in to the piano store. What do you want to buy? Oh, let me go ahead and get that for you. It just doesn't work like that. You have to really understand who wants what from you. There's always going to be the so-called the engineer-minded people that is going to come in. They got money, but they're not uber rich. So they're still very much into, what do you got from me? And why should I get, this product from you? And that requires a skill, a set of idea and understanding of how to talk to this individual, how to do your presentation in regards to from a technical point of view. Accelerated action, the way that they do these hammers are very different than the other companies. Everything is done by hand. We go through a process that explains such details to guys that want to know this. Now, would I give this information to everybody? No, of course not. A family of mom and dad comes in with a 3-year-old and they want to, buy a piano, and, dad is making good bank. So they're going to get a Steinway for the house to look good as well. He's not really interested in wanting to know about diaphragmatic soundboards and why that design is superior than flat soundboards. Most people are like, what? Yeah. And those people, piano people who know what I'm talking about. Hi, how are you doing? So this is where you have to understand how to apply your talent and your know-how at the right time to the right people. And that requires you doing a checklist. You evaluate your system of where you're at and what you're doing. And to have a career, and I had a pretty darn good run in the piano business. I did that with several stores. I got certified by Steinway, Yamaha, and Kawai. So that means that 3 major players on this planet on piano, I know thoroughly about their technology, as well as their history, and as well as everything they do with their instrument. And I'll say this. Yamaha people came into our showroom one day, and these are the Japanese Yamaha guys, not the American guys. And they were coming in, they're huddling in groups. Oh, what do you like? Oh, yeah. And taking notes, literally. It's like watching a movie. It was so interesting that event happened to me. So one of the things I said to them, and I took them over to the digital piano. I go, you see this, and I play certain notes and so forth. I go, you hear it, but you don't feel it. And immediately they looked at each other and it's like, okay. And it says, listen, what we're looking for is energy moving to the player. There's 2 things you need to kind of understand, that some players that are so advanced, they can feel the vibrations on the fingertips, that with certain notes and dynamics, that is transferring that energy through. The other is that sound is hitting the board in regards to when you open up that case and the sound projects, hits up, and then dissipates off that reflection. That tone is different than 2 speakers hitting against the back wall. So if you guys can do 2 things, create a sound projection that goes up, and then create a frequency vibration to the keys. If you can do those 2 things, not only they're marketable, but they're authentically now emulating an acoustic piano behavior. Okay, so these guys, okay, hold on. I don't know if I'm the only guy who said that. Chances are probably not, because, when you really understand piano, that's the first thing you're going to understand, why digital pianos are nowhere near acoustic pianos. Upright pianos don't behave like a grand piano, on and on and on. That's why they're different. And when you know it, I think it's about 9-10 years later, Yamaha comes out with their digital series that you can feel the vibration on the keys. You can hear the sound project upward, reflecting off the open lid, because they realize sound projecting this way is different than sound going this way to a wall, then bouncing back on the wall. And most people who don't know how to do that reflection thing with the pianos going against the wall, they push it flush against the wall. And this is with upright pianos as well as digitals. Instead of doing flush against the wall, you need to pull that sucker back at least half an inch. You want energy and air to breathe. That's where you're going to hear color in depth. So for me to having to have this great career selling pianos was heaven sent, because not only my aptitude toward music had changed, all the relationship I had with academia, people who were professors and great concert pianists like Yan Shen, helped me understand and give me an insight in regards to their success, their systems that they developed to serve them. And that to me was more than anything that I could ever go and pay anybody else to teach me, because you couldn't, most people don't know how to teach a system. I am rare in this sense because I was a music teacher for 30 years and I taught music in systems, and I developed certain things for other ways to teach, because everybody learns differently. I can teach the traditional way, take the Mel Bay book and go, here's C, here's G, staff, and here's the note, and do all those things. But only a certain percentage of your students is going to get that. There's others that's going, you got to put your finger here, and when you put it here, and and then there's other people that you got to write it like here, and that note matches here. Whatever it may be for that person to finally go, bing, light bulb goes on, and it gets a perspective of, okay, now I'm on something. That's what we're searching for. How do we get to the next time stamp? How do we get to the next checkpoint, right? So I was very, very honored in regards to having to develop and just constantly refine and doing systems with people that I've met in the business of piano. And because of that, it enriched my life greatly. Now, from that position of selling pianos, I followed my wife, Kat, who was excellent in sales. She's got so many trophies in her room. You swear it was like walking into Wayne Gretzky's house. That's how much trophy she has in regards to top number one sales, top team, top individual, top gross earner, all that stuff, all through her career. And I'm just so fortunate that she's my wife. So what happened when we moved back to Texas from California? I was in a situation where I was looking for a position, and she was already working with a new home builder. New home builder is different than being a realtor. Realtor is doing resales. New home builders works for a builder who will sell you a lot and then build you a house like that. So she was really great at it. She actually set records in Houston with her partner that was so monumental that all of us got to go to Hawaii. So how big is that? And after she was doing this about 4 or 5 years into it, I got out of the piano business and I got into a new home business. New home business used some of the craftiness in the system in regards to customer development, customer follow-up, customer interaction, those type of things. But in sense of the widget itself, the product is huge difference. Why? Because piano is a passion thing. House is a necessity. Probably one of the biggest decisions of individual's life outside of what? Children, marriage, buy my house, right? So all of a sudden that responsibility in the level of comfort and trust shifts in regards to how I have to prep my presentation, my information, and basically my relationship, how I get them to want to do business with me. And it was a learning experience. It was tougher to sell a house than it is to sell a piano, because piano, you can go to their heart because they love music. House, 9 out of 10 times is always about what I can afford. because it's so tied into the bank and the mortgage business. And without that, then I probably could have got away with different type of structure of how I work on my sales presentation. But because of having certain governors that what I could actually do, somebody is wanting a $600,000 house can only afford 350. Doesn't matter how you spin it, they're not getting the $600,000 house. So when I brought this into my life, I have, of course, my wife that I can watch and learn and pattern. One of the key factors that I've learned in that system of new home sales is never estimate, underestimate, or overestimate your situation, because it's just such a fine line between something going not going to work to something that is, it's right here, it's done. It's difficult. I don't think it's the kind of position that most people can handle, because if you don't make something, you're gone, you're fired. It's a very high pressure job. The reason why behind that is because if you get into a good community, meaning that it's popular, that people want to come and live in that community, then you could have 2 solid, 3 solid, 4 solid years of just basically making good money. What I mean by making good money, we're talking about 6 figures, probably, 150 plus easily just in making sales. And don't make any bones about, saying, well, I want to take that job, but you give up your weekends, and sometimes you're working late, for instance, because they can't come to see you until they get off work. Then they're going to eat dinner. Then they're going to come see you. Okay. So that means that from me opening up my model home at 9 o'clock in the morning, now I'm not going to see my last customer until 7:30, which I have to sit down with them and make sure that they're 100% ready to sign the deal and pick out what they want. And that task often is a multi-hour event to sit down to get somebody to go through all the legality, the paperwork, select all their options and so forth, so they can go to the design center to make sure they get everything they want and all that. Yeah, I'm not going home until I lock up everything in the model home, 10, 11 o'clock, get to my house around midnight, then having to eat dinner, then having to get back up around 7 to start over again. And that was brutal, but it was a level of training and discipline that I got into my system that I couldn't ask for anywhere else. Not even at the piano business, definitely not at any guitar stores, because those are things that just people love and they want to talk shop. It's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name. They want to come and hang with you. Nobody wants to come over and hang with you and talk about roofing. Nobody wants to come over and say, hey, can you add an extra spigot to my backyard? Those are things that once they're done, you say hi to them, you wave to them, and maybe occasionally they stop by, but they're on their lives and you're just developing that community. So the past experiences from working in the piano business, how did I parlay? That is that, of course, never judge book by its cover. I've seen people with Bermuda shorts and just god awful Hawaiian shirts turn out to be presidents of major corporations. I've seen guys walking in there with the stick up their butt in a nice Gucci suit that couldn't, get financing for a $2,000 digital piano. It's all over the board. So don't preconceive and judge. Ultimately, for me, when it all encompasses, there's so much layers to this onion that I can unveil to help and teach in sales. I can teach business management because I did this. And I did also business consulting for small businesses. And the couple of things I did is how to revamp their system, how to get rid of their dead weight. That was one of my specialties. I was often hired to do a training session and then identify the people that felt they're so entitled that they don't have to work hard. And I'm very proud that I have all this in my resume, because all on the big point of view, big picture is I came out of the thing in my life wanting to be a professional guitar player and be in a rock band and tour the world. And what I came away with is this incredible, rich, robust idea of how life is outside of just playing guitar and jumping around like a monkey. So I want to be able to now take everything that I've gathered and bring it back and help others, especially the new generation. You know, if you're 20 something and you're just coming into the world of greatness, you need systems and you need coaching. I might be the place to be, you know, for you. The only way you can find out is shoot me a message and let's get a discovery meeting and see if you would fit best working with me, helping you. And I'm excited about it. That's the key thing that I think works the best is that when you have a mentor that is available for the mentor apprentice position, an opportunity, and the mentor is not finding it to be, oh, why do I have to do this? Opposed to, I can't wait to leave a legacy to keep this going. So that makes the biggest challenge for me. And the biggest, I would say the enthusiasm that fuels my fire. So that feels good. And I hope everyone out there who watched this today streaming, I hope you enjoyed the 13th note systems in place. I wanted to go in depth to talk about building systems because I realized that most people who failed at doing things and quit prematurely or don't know what they're really wanting to get out of life, I have ways that can help you tremendously. And it starts with, you know, whether you go into my book, The 365 Method, or you come into my training camp with the 365 coaching, or something in a relationship where you go to my Miracles Online podcast and learn about dating and commitments and marriage and having a great love of your life and how that feels. I'm going to tell you, if you have a balance of that into your life, then it sure makes working a whole lot easier. It sure makes everything else work a whole lot better. So there's no trick to any of this. Is you. The only person that can make a difference is you. So thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. 13th Note Podcast, Art of Mastery. Don't forget, this whole thing started because of a movie that I produced, the 13th Note. Fantastic little film. We're very proud of it. Won 17 awards in 9 festivals around the world. And that spawned the inspiration to developing podcasting, meeting with people that has their own specialty of mastery. Also, that became the catalyst to create the 365 method. That became the book. And then that became the training, along with the special coaching sessions. So I'm extremely excited. I hope you are too. This will replay at ribhills.tv on Sunday. That is the big channel that Josh Reed created. Josh is such a great guy. I can't say more than enough. If you haven't seen his show, Daily Dose, Conversations on the Fringe, all those things, you need to go check it out. And for me, after this episode, I'm going to be on the road for a couple of weeks. So there's not going to be another 13th Note, I believe, on this month, maybe the last week of this month. So we're going to probably play the movie in its place in one of the weekends on redpills.tv. I hope you tune in. If you haven't seen it, by all means, check it out. It's a 20-minute short film. It's very heartwarming. Tells the stories of 2 incredible talents. One's a gentleman coming out of Texas. The other one's a lovely woman coming out of China. And they're the master of their arts, and they meet at a central location and create the ultimate art, self-expression, the 13th Note. So check that out. Like and subscribe. Like I said, comment. I love comments. Somebody say hi. So with all that, of course, U Publishing is where you can get the book, and YAYU. Everything's going to be down in the description of this podcast. So that's going to help tremendously. You also know you can always send me a message to either my Rumble, my Facebook, this is streaming on, the X is streaming on, My LinkedIn is streaming on. And of course, my YouTube is streaming on. And so there's no reason for you to go, I didn't know how to get a hold of you. No, just say hi. Do something like that, right? With that, much love to everyone. All my best to you. Reach for the stars. Let's rock and roll. I'll see you later.